Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's Diversity Conference in docket PC52. We are on the record. Today we are recognizing and celebrating the extent to which our public utilities and public service companies both engage and support businesses owned by persons of color, veterans, women, and members of the LGBT community. Every year we have a different theme for this conference, and we'll be hearing from diverse suppliers this year regarding impacts of COVID-19 on their businesses. Specifically, we'll hear from a Black women-owned marketing business based out of Baltimore, a veteran-owned electrical contractor based out of Dundalk, and a Black gay-owned office supply furnishing company out of Annapolis Junction. I think you'll appreciate hearing their various perspectives. Separately, as Maryland and the nation grapple with both the health and financial toll of the pandemic, we are also bearing witness to a new civil rights movement and being uncomfortably reminded that our country has fallen short of its aspiration to promote diversity, inclusion, equity, and equality for all. While there's no easy or quick solution, these important discussions have begun, and there are examples of success all around us. As you'll soon hear, for the second year in a row, Maryland's regulated utilities collectively surpassed the PSC's diverse supplier goals and soared past the 25% target that we've established. They've spent over $1 billion in the past year with these minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. That is an all-time record and is something for Maryland to be very proud of. However, this conversation on diversity and inclusion must continue past today. As I reflected to the PSC staff just yesterday, our different backgrounds, cultures, and experiences make us better and stronger, and I truly do believe that. As a fellow Marylander, as an Asian American, and as a gay man, I remain committed to our diversity efforts and that they will continue both for the state and the PSC as they grow and succeed. And I know my fellow commissioners share that sentiment. We have a great agenda in store for today with a number of special guests. However, before I introduce them, some of my colleagues have welcoming remarks. I'll begin by recognizing Commissioner Obi Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. I appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us today. I know you weren't ordered to be here, so I appreciate that you're spending a few hours with us to talk about this important program. I wanted to briefly express my appreciation for the hard work so many have put into Maryland's Supplier Diversity Program, and it served as a very positive example of government-private industry partnership that embraces the business case for growing economies. I'd encourage you to maintain your focus and commitment even in these challenging times, because today's story isn't rooted in regulatory pressure to participate in this initiative, but instead it's based on something we're born knowing, but sometimes forget along the way. And that's at our best, in our greatest moments, our greatest successes come when we're all pulling together towards a common goal. We've all had a role in this moment. And as I did 10 years ago when I was sitting in a different chair, I applaud all of you on the lessons learned from our failures, our collective success, and I'm looking forward to even better coming in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Anthony Odonnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to the participants in today's conference. I have to apologize. I have some technical difficulties with an area-wide outage of my internet service here in Southern Maryland. And it points to the challenges that we're all experiencing and coping with and finding new and innovative ways to deal with situations that come upon us quickly. And we're doing that. And I think that's the exciting part of innovation. And I consider the Supplier Diversity Conference, part of an ongoing and continuing effort at innovation and improvement. I have witnessed it firsthand over the years. This is one of my most favorite proceedings since I've been at the commission. We get to hear about successes. We get to hear about challenges. We get to maybe find ways to ask questions to spur some improvements in processes and performance. And I just enjoy this process. To me, it's a sign of continuing to improve and get better, make things better. And I thank you all for being here and participating. To our utilities and suppliers who chose to participate under the MOU, thank you. You continue to operate at a very high level, and it's greatly appreciated in this arena because, after all, in my opinion, diversity of all manner makes us that much stronger. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to the conference.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. I'd like to introduce three of our special guests this morning, beginning with remarks from the Honorable Jimmy Rhee, who's Governor Hogan's Secretary of the Office of Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs. Good morning, Secretary Rhee. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Secretary.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And on behalf of Governor Hogan, it's an honor and privilege to be here. And allow me to first thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the Commissioners Richard, Odonnell, Linton, and Herman for facilitating this important annual review of the Maryland Supplier Diversity Program. And I want to really thank you, all of you, for advocating on behalf of minority and small and women businesses, because your commitment to their space is really vital and truly appreciated. And I'm not going to talk about my office does, but we do administer three important programs for state small businesses, Minority Business Enterprise, MBE, and the Small Business Reserve, which when these small entities could become prime contractors. Of course, very important veterans business programs. And my office sets contracting goals, establishes best practices, and monitors their implementation across 70 state agencies, including universities. So given this role, we are in tune on a daily basis with minority and women-owned businesses concerning their issues and struggles. As such, this year's theme, Mr. Chairman, the impact of COVID-19 on minority and women-owned businesses is really highly relevant. And so if I could start, make some comments on that particular theme, is the basic premise is simply that we are in an extraordinary situation right now. It's a very difficult time for these small businesses. And many Maryland businesses had to close their doors, especially since March of this year, when COVID-19 cases started to increase and the lockdown order was issued. Now, I understand that one study, National Bureau of Economic Research, conducted in June 20 of this year, I guess, indicates that number of working business owners in the U.S. plummeted from 15 million in February of this year to 11.7 million in April of this year because of COVID-19 mandates and shifts in demand. Now, this loss of 3.3 million business owners, about 22%, was the highest, the largest drop on record. So this is very unusual times. And of course, although all types of businesses and people have been affected, the worst impacted have been minority and women-owned businesses. Between February and April of this year, African Americans experienced elimination about 40% of business owners. Latin Americans experienced 32% elimination. Women business owners suffer a drop of 25%. So one might ask, why are these businesses most at risk? Well, many of them start out with far less capital, whether from investments or bank loans, than white-owned businesses do. So they were in financially precarious positions even before this crisis. And that's especially so with Black-owned businesses in general. Only 1% of Black-owned businesses get a bank loan in their first year of business, compared with 7% of white business owners. Women or Hispanic-owned businesses don't fare much better, okay? And many of them are in industries more susceptible to pandemic disruption. First, service industries such as accommodation and food services, personal services, and retail in general have the highest share of minority and women businesses. And second, these services often require physical proximity to others and are less likely to be delivered remotely. And although the healthcare and social assistance sector is less likely to see immediate economic disruption because of their essential nature, it's the industry most exposed to contracting the virus. And as to women-owned businesses specifically, especially women of color, the story is similar. The pandemic has been devastating. You know, when you talk about this, typically women-owned business ownership is substantially lower than male business ownership and have lower revenues and profits on average. And if you recall the slowdown in 2008, one that we call sub-mortgage crisis, right? There was a production recession because people stopped making and building things as loans got harder to obtain. A lot of workers who made the stuff back then, typically men, lost their jobs. This time, the most noticeable slowdown is in the service sector. With everyone stuck at home, Marylanders are not paying for other people to do things for them, okay? Hairdressers, restaurant workers, hotel housekeepers, retail clerks have all been thrown out of work, and women hold the majority of these jobs, and many women-owned businesses service these sectors. And typically, these are low-margin businesses without staying power, especially when revenue gets a haircut like the one that which we are experiencing. It's tough. On top of this difficult situation, women are getting hit harder because of the enormous pressure at home from school and daycare closures. Now, how can you run your business, especially if you're a single mother with a child at home? So I'm concerned that this disproportionate loss of women-owned businesses would further increase gender inequality in business ownership and perhaps broader economic inequality, vitiating the gain that we achieved via the Equal Pay Act, which this past May 29th was its 50th anniversary. Trust me, there was no celebration, okay? So bottom line, COVID-19 has exacerbated persistent and deep inequalities impacting women and people of color. Now, even though data and the numbers on economic impact are still coming in, I estimate since March of this year, approximately 40% of Maryland's Black-owned businesses, 30% of Latino-owned businesses, 25% of Asian-owned businesses closed either temporarily or permanently, while close to 20% of white-owned businesses closed. The minority and women-owned businesses that called my office during the last few months have reported the following. Many of them, about 1/3, stated that they would only be able to operate for 1 month or less unless cash infusion takes place. They are probably out of business by now. Much larger number, about 3 out of 4, stated that they would not be able to operate for more than 6 months without cash infusion. And they rank payroll and rent as the most challenging expenses to pay for during this COVID-19. And many of them were not able to operate during COVID-19 because they were not categorized as essential businesses. One woman business owner who called me stated that 90% of her business evaporated practically overnight once the lockdown was ordered. Now, she is in people transportation business and operates about 20 microbuses, 50% of which she leased, another 50% which she purchased with personal guarantee on loans with her house as collateral, right? When the pandemic hit, her world and optimism for future just collapsed. And as we were conversing on the phone, she mostly cried. She knew there was nothing that we could do. She just needed someone to talk to, which I did for an hour or so. Now, a story like this is typical, not an exception. It's tough out there. So to put things on the perspective, yeah, we have about 600,000 small businesses. And under this governor's leadership, we become home to more women and minority-owned businesses per capita than any other state in the country. And about 65% of all small businesses in Maryland are either minority or woman-owned. And many of these businesses are non-employed firms. So when pandemic hit us, Governor Hogan, a small business owner himself, immediately provided Maryland small business COVID-19 emergency relief loan and grant funds, all totaling about $190 million. But then we received overwhelming number of applications. Money quickly ran out, indicating the severity of the current economic crisis. So the COVID-19 economic recovery resources offered at both the state and federal levels were broadly directed to what I call small businesses by definition, which allows for up to 500 employees. But Maryland's small business community is dominated by non-employer companies of sole proprietors, independent contractors, and gig workers. So you can easily visualize the misalignment between the good intention and massively genuine need. And my office estimates that 1/3 of one minority or woman-owned businesses did not even apply for federal or state funding because either they did not know much about it due to lack of outreach or awareness, or funds were exhausted even before they applied. So limited access to capital adversely impacts the underlying health of small businesses in good times and certainly can cripple them in bad times. By all indications, too little of the COVID-19 recovery money flow down to this vulnerable community. And I mean, I can go on with more stories and data, but most of us gets the gist that COVID-19 hit minority and woman-owned businesses very hard. So if I could sort of pivot and briefly talk about what to consider going forward. First, according to a report by McKinsey, despite the hard hit to our economy, minority and woman-owned businesses are optimistic about the post-COVID economy and are more likely to offer support to their local communities, right? And I strongly agree with that assessment because it's true that there's no group of people